Hello, my name is Michael Steil, and our presentation will be in two parts. The first part is about the old Xbox hacking, the second one will be about Xbox 360 hacking, so as much as we already have, because the Xbox has just been released 3 weeks ago, so there's not so much known. I can say that now, Linux doesn't run on it yet. But we have quite some information on that, and that part will be done by Felix Domke after my first part. So that you know what you can expect from my first part. We have had previous talks about Xbox done in 2002, in 2003, and in August of 2005 I did some additional research, and including information from the Bunny book, and all this together makes today's presentation. So I must warn you that there is few really new stuff. All of what I'm going to tell you has been done until 2003, but there are many things that haven't been previously released because we wanted to have an additional way if Microsoft updates the Xbox, so we didn't disclose that information. And well, another point is that what has been done in the last year is real reverse engineering of how Microsoft did the Xbox security system. So this talk is more like a conclusion or a summary of the complete system. And I must also tell that most of what has been done, most of the Xbox hacking has been done by other great people, has not been done by me. So let's look at the title, What Can You Expect? We are talking about security, we are talking about hardware security. Don't mistake this as security, what to do against buffer exploits. That's not this kind of security, it's more like a hardware vendor lock-in security. And yes, I admit that the title is quite catchy about the 17 mistakes that Microsoft made. Now, well, I even have to emphasize that it's not 17 individual mistakes, but it is 17 classes of mistakes. Several mistakes have been made more than once. So the question is it really Microsoft? Are they to blame that they made all these mistakes? That's a theory of Bruce Schneier, who commented on a previous article I wrote, and his comment was lots of kindergarten security mistakes. Now, the question is, was he right? Is it really that simple? And that's why I'm going to start presenting everything from Microsoft's view. We will try to construct the security system, and afterwards we will hack it. So, if the mistakes are obvious, then Schneier was right, and yeah, kindergarten security mistakes. And if the mistakes are not at all obvious, then we have proven that it's just not easy doing a security system. So what I expect from you now is that you pretend to be Microsoft and think like Microsoft. Let's look back at the year 2000. Home entertainment. Microsoft competes mainly in home entertainment against Sony. Sony has lots of products already on the market. It's there with the Discman, with the mini disc. Microsoft is also there in some way with Windows Media Audio, and also NVIDIA with Windows Media Technologies. But Sony has the PlayStation, and Microsoft doesn't really have a complete product in the living room, and so they wanted their own video gaming console. So I told you that was in 2000. And the PlayStation 2 was going to be out a year and a half after that, and Microsoft badly needed an Xbox, their video game console, within 2 years. And there is not really a way to construct a complete new gaming console plus a security system, and giving the developers the time to develop their games within 2 years. So what they did was basically use PC hardware, use Windows software, use DirectX libs, and put it in a smaller case. So this method was fast. They could do this in 2 years, and it was also cheap because they could use off-the-shelf components. For example, the Celeron. The Celeron is a standard Celeron 3 mobile with 733 megahertz. All the other stuff, it's NVIDIA GeForce hardware. Not at all that custom. It's a standard 10 gigabytes hard disk. They could use DVD-ROM technology. They had USB ports for the controllers. It's everything quite standard and quite easy to develop and to maintain. And it has the Windows 2000 kernel a bit stripped down so that it fits into less memory. So the Xbox actually is just a PC. But the question is, well, what is a PC? What is a PC? What is a Mac? Why is one computer a PC? Why might it not be a PC? If a computer has an x86 CPU, is it already a PC? If it has a VGA style GPU, is it a PC then? Does it need all the PCI, AGP, IDE, USB, all these technologies? Is it already a PC then? Maybe not, but what the Xbox does have is all the legacy stuff. That is the old 1982 interrupt controller. Nobody uses that anymore today. Or the old timer. I think it will be used, but it's 1982 stuff. And it also has the A20 gate, all the old legacy components. So if it is a PC, it would be trivial to run Linux or anything on it, but well, we need a security system for that, not just against Linux, but let's look at the different threats. We have Linux as one possible threat, so that people would use it as a computer, which is a bad thing because the Xbox is sold at loss and they make money with the games. So if someone uses it as a PC, they might really lose money, so they didn't want that. And also it's a prestige question. Homebrew software is also no good because if someone makes a media player or a browser, a media player that is not Microsoft Media Player or a browser that is not Internet Explorer, it would also be a bad thing because they do want the monopoly on that platform, which is always a good thing. Copied games is pretty obvious, they want to prevent that. And unlicensed games, that's something that some people might remember from Sega versus Accolade, that game developers have to pay royalties to Microsoft for every game, and if anyone could make games and unlicensed games were possible that Microsoft did not authorize, they would not gain that money. These 4 security threats can be addressed with a single system. The idea of this system is to make only authentic code run. Every time execution is passed from one chunk of code to the next chunk of code, all you have to do is check for the integrity of this. And this is called the chain of trust. A chain of trust that reminds us of what? Chain of trust and everything, all that is exactly the trusted computing stuff that everyone is afraid of. The Xbox has a complete trusted computing implementation in it. So in a chain of trust, where does execution get passed to another chunk of code? When the system starts up, we must load a Windows operating system or something, and we have to check whether this Windows is okay, whether someone has tampered with that. Also, if Windows loads a game or any other application, then another check has to be made. And let's look at what PCs look like. Well, actually, that's an Xbox, but it's just like a PC. We have a CPU there. We have the graphics processor there, which is integrated into the Northbridge, as with the Enforce chipset, Enforce One chipset that NVIDIA sold for the PC as well. We have a Southbridge there. We have his memory, and there's a flash chip. So what does a PC do if you turn it on? Where does it start its execution? Let's look at this. This is the memory map of a PC. At the very bottom, you have RAM. And at the top, you have the flash mapped into the addressing space. Now the CPU starts at this address. That's at the very top, minus 16 bytes. And this must be covered by flash on a PC. It would typically be code like this, like switch into protected mode, do anything. But what if we modified that somehow? Then we could just run our code. Well, not our code, we are Microsoft. The attackers could run their code. So, how could they make their code to be in there in this flash ROM? Well, it's pretty obvious. The first possibility is you can just replace the flash chip. If you can put a socket in, and you can put your own flash chip in there, and it would run from would run your code there, which would be a pretty bad idea. The second thing is you can override the flash chip. There is a connector where you can attach your own flash chip. Now, why is that? Why did they add this extra connector? And the reason is money, because it is quite expensive if you put ROM inside a computer. It is also expensive if you use a flash chip, which you pre-program and then put into the mainboard, but it's a lot cheaper to put an empty ROM chip in it. Then the chipset must support it, that if the ROM chip is empty, then it will boot off an external ROM chip. And this ROM chip can then download over the network the image and flash it on the system to make all this a lot cheaper. So Microsoft did need this connector for an override ROM. And the third thing is it is a flash chip, so you can also overwrite it in a way. So that is not what we want. That must not be the case. There are 3 of these attacks. What possibilities do we have? The first possibility would be to use a ROM chip instead of a flash chip. A ROM chip has the features that it is more expensive. It cannot be overwritten. It cannot be overridden because we don't need that in-system flashing. But the problem is we can still replace it. We could put a socket in it, and we would have lost. The second possibility is we could integrate the ROM chip into some other device. We wouldn't use any external chip, but we could integrate the ROM into the CPU. Then there would be no way to overwrite it because it is ROM, no way to override it, and there would be no way to replace it because you would have to replace the CPU, which just doesn't make sense because you would pay for the CPU twice and you would have to do soldering. Nobody would do that. It is very effective, but it's very expensive to use a custom CPU for that. Well, Microsoft wanted to have a cheap console, and they wanted to use off-the-shelf components, and they used the Celeron, and they couldn't have used off-the-shelf Celerons if the ROM wasn't there. So there is a third possibility. That is, it has been done before. I think the Nintendo 64 has done that, and I think also the Nintendo Game Boy. They integrate a small ROM, a really small ROM, just a few hundred bytes, into some device, into some chip that cannot be replaced, and then use a standard external flash chip. What must be done there is, well, this is obviously cheap, because you have a small ROM. A small ROM is always better than a big ROM. And, well, the question is where to put it. I'll come to that later. And it is effective. It is effective because the idea is that this secret ROM, it's 512 bytes on the Xbox, is at the very top of memory. If the CPU starts, it will not start from external flash memories, but it will start from this secret ROM that is embedded into some chip. This secret ROM can now verify the flash integrity, and if okay, it will pass execution to flash. The question is now where we would put it. I told you that putting it into the CPU is not a good idea because it is too expensive, but the South Bridge is really great because the South Bridge is a custom chip anyway. And, well, the downside of this is that it is a secret ROM. It should be hidden so that people are less likely to attack it successfully. But data will travel over a bus if it is in the CPU. No data will travel over a bus. There should be no way to sniff it, or at least easily. This way, it can be sniffed, but it's not really easy. It's a double data rate, 200 megahertz bus, and few people have the equipment to sniff this bus. Well, but we have a problem now with flash verification. I told you we must verify that the kernel in this external flash memory that is untrusted is authentic and nothing has been changed. So our secret ROM must make sure that it is okay, which could be done, for example, with an RSA-based signature.